Okay, thanks, Eric, and thank you all for connecting with me. I know everybody on the call today. I've met at least once, I've chatted with some of you, and it's a case that this webinar series we're not broadcasting this to people that are not current customers of ours and partners and that type of stuff. So it's a case that at the end of the day, it's us trying to give you sort of an insight as to what we're doing and some of the thinking that we're doing here at ActiveDEMAND. And again, I just want to thank you all for taking the time to participate in this. And again, also very important is thank you for being our customer and working with us. So the goals of these presentations, like Eric said, is we're constantly evolving the platform, we're adding new features, a lot of the stuff, because we have so much stuff in the platform, some of it might be stuff you haven't seen before, and the intent of us is to give these presentations is to give you some context, not only how to use the new features, but also why we put them in, give you some ideas to where we're going with the platform and some of our thinking, because we're not just willy-nilly throwing stuff in the platform and thinking, oh, that'd be neat. Was actually some strategy as to where we're going with the platform. So I'm going to share a few slides to sort of position what I'm going to be talking about, and then I'm going to give you a short demonstration of a feature set or set of features that are, some of it's new, some of it's old, but it all fits into the context of this specific talk. And then, of course, questions. If you have questions, post them. As always, we're here to help and here to listen. So I'm going to start things off, and really the topic of today is really about sales marketing alignment and, more importantly, sales enablement. And I want to start with a bit of theory, and it's really to give some context to why this topic is important. And on the call today, we have people that are agencies, we have marketers, etc. And I think the majority of the people are marketing. So the focus of this presentation is from a marketing perspective. So as marketers, I think I just want to talk about data first, the data strategy. I think it's important to understand the concept of data. And if you've been in some of my previous webinars, you've seen this slide before. But it's really, I'm just going to talk about the different types of data and the importance of creating a data strategy. So when we first engage, whether it's our internal constituents or for an agency, it's external constituents, the first thing we're going to do, of course, is we're going to do a bit of research, understand who we're trying to market to, what is the target market look like, what industries we targeting, etc. And this first phase of data collection, if you will, is really research. It's speculative. It's very speculative. Clients or the CEOs or the executives are going to be telling you things about their business or the business, and you're going to collect this data, right? But it is, from your perspective as a marketer, it is speculative. And where we collect this data is marketing automation platform like ActiveDEMAND. We might have in spreadsheets, slide decks, reports. It's all over the place is the reality. And really, this is where this is the target audience that we are going to be approaching, right? So we take our research, metadata, speculative data, and then we start applying our thinking and strategies to try to get our prospects to engage with us. So the next phase of the data is really the behavioral data. So we've applied pressure to a population of people. Some of these people start doing things, right? So the behavioral data is like they're clicking links, they're visiting our website, they're engaging with ads, they're doing all of this stuff that are behaviors. Now, the behaviors we're going to use as marketers for, it's better data than the research data, which was speculative. Now we can actually make inferences based on behaviors. And the data that we're collecting here is clearly in ActiveDEMAND in the marketing automation system. It is in things like Google Analytics, accounting systems, ad platforms, social platforms, etc. And you're starting to see a pattern here, I think. And I think the most important data of all is direct interaction data, factual data. It's data that which we can connect to an individual person, right? Now, the person up here, engaged prospects, now we actually have a sales engagement with the prospect, and because we're actually talking to the prospect, the reality is that the data that's coming, the prospects are not lying. The salespeople are doing a great job of talking to the folks and understanding the actual reality of the prospect. So the data inside the factual data is typically captured in the CRM. Now, for getting a data strategy, it's important that we have a feedback loop so that all of the data that we've collected is feeding back, and we're getting better models for our targeted marketing, etc. So, and I'm just focusing this part of the conversation on the data path and the data strategy, and it'll give context to the rest of the conversation. And so now I want to talk about the two main systems in the process. System number one is ActiveDEMAND, which is the marketing automation system. So the marketing automation system is engaged in the entire funnel. That's why it's a triangle here. There's way more people at the top of the funnel than there are at the bottom of the funnel. The other system that is extremely important is the CRM, and this plays heavily more in the longer sales cycle and the B2B engagements, but arguably there's a role for a CRM in B2C as well. So these two systems are extremely important, and having a strategy as how these two systems interplay is also critical. So it's a case that if we look at the two systems, ActiveDEMAND is a tool set for applying pressure to a population of people. And really the intent here is to apply this pressure to this population of people to create sales-ready leads. It is the system of record before we get to the prospect lead boundary. So as marketers, we're using this tool set to hopefully feed a well-defined sales process and definitely a well-defined and maintained CRM system. So if you're not currently using a CRM or your clients are not using CRMs, I argue it's extremely important to get this piece of software into the story. And for many of you that I've talked to personally, I've always said about what our strategy is. Our strategy is to not be a CRM. We're not going to build a crappy CRM. And the reason we're not building a CRM is I think the biggest challenge any CRM faces is getting a salesperson to use it. And if they're not using, it's a case if the CRM isn't purpose-built for that individual role, it's going to be very difficult to get the sales folks to use it. But anyways, stepping back, so ActiveDEMAND is the system of record before we get to the prospect lead boundary. And then once we cross this line and we pass the lead off to the sales organization, we also pass the responsibility of the system of record. So the system of record becomes the CRM. And when I'm talking about system of record, it's the case that I'm really saying that it's the system where the truth is. So definitely before we get to the prospect lead boundary, the truth is in ActiveDEMAND. But once we pass it off to the CRM, the sales folks are talking to the prospects. So arguably, they have a much better view of the data and the individual people than we can as marketers. So it's really the case that the system of record has to be the CRM, and there has to be a reflective nature between the CRM and the marketing system. So ActiveDEMAND is we've focused very hard at being CRM agnostic, so that your clients or your company can choose the CRM that's right for your sales folks. But the end of the day is that whenever we've taken the approach of integrating with the CRM, we've always taken this philosophy: is we are the system of record before the line is crossed, and then we have a well-defined process for moving the data into the CRM, and then clearly the CRM becomes the system of record, and that's where the truth resides. Now, regardless of these pieces of software and the people using them, I think it's important to understand the why everything is happening. Everything is happening here for one purpose and one purpose only. It's to close business. And if we don't keep this in mind, we're going to end up in our silos. And the reality is we will actually be slowing down the journeys, not accelerating the journeys. So it's important to stay focused that in this presentation, in the context of this presentation, that the reason everybody is doing anything with these two pieces of software is to close business. That is absolutely our driving factor for everybody. So if we look at the CRM versus ActiveDEMAND, CRM is used by salespeople for tracking sales activity. ActiveDEMAND through the whole journey and giving full attribution on every single touch point is prospect activity tracking. So arguably, if I'm a salesperson, some of the data that's in ActiveDEMAND is extremely important to actually reside in the CRM, to be presented in the CRM. Another thing that's the CRM is doing is revenue tracking. So when people are actually buying things, it's recorded in the CRM. Whereas ActiveDEMAND is an effort tracking system for the marketing folks. So arguably, to truly understand, we need to reflect some of the revenue data back into ActiveDEMAND. And we've typically taken this approach with our CRM integrations, that when a deal is won, we post it to ActiveDEMAND. So I'm just going to step back and state a few obvious things. And some of these things are we all know and we acknowledge, and other things I think it's important to acknowledge, but they're very obvious. The number one thing, first thing I want to say is that arguably the salespeople are closer to the customer than marketers. Right? They're talking to the customers. Like, our marketing team talks to customers as well, but not as much as our sales folks, right? They are on a regular basis talking with the clients. Obvious thing number two is that marketers require accurate data to succeed. Right? We need as accurate of data as possible to actually be able to do our jobs. And the obvious item number three is nobody wins if the purchase is not made, right? The marketing folks don't win, the sales folks don't win. More importantly, the business doesn't win if we actually do not get a sale. So it's a case that total customer acquisition cost, that's a four-letter acronym there, but total cost, customer acquisition cost is a KPI that somebody is losing sleep over, right? That's somebody that's paying for the marketing and for the sales, whether it's shareholders, it's the company or your client or whatever. It isn't just marketing spend, it isn't just sales spend. It is the total customer acquisition cost. Somebody is losing sleep over this. And this one's is a painful one, is from a marketer's perspective, but it's the reality. The person who scores the goal gets the credit, right? We always see the person, in North America in football, when they take that ball across the goal line, that's the person that's doing the funky dance. Or if somebody in the rest of the world kicks that round ball past the keeper, that's the person that's celebrated. In hockey, the person who scores a goal. It is nothing to do with all of nobody else is celebrating the rest of the team, right? So I think the last fact I want to present is marketers are typically fired before salespeople are, right? And why is because of the bullet rate ahead of it. So it's important to understand that we have to all work together as a team, right? So just a little bit of focus here. Goal number one for marketers is the salespeople have to succeed, right? Because the end of the day is they're close to the goal line. They're the ones that are putting it in the net or what have you. And we as marketers, it isn't just about driving leads or KPIs or stats or any of this other stuff. We're really here to ensure that either it's our business or our client's business, that their sales team are succeeding. So we have to understand as marketers what challenges those folks are facing on a daily basis, right? So the sales folks are facing on a daily basis, it is a contact sport. Like we as marketers, we're typically applying pressure to a large population of people, trying to personalize journeys, etc. But really salespeople are talking to clients. And it is absolutely a contact sport, and it's guided by, and they all know this, the Pareto principle. 80% of their revenue is coming from 20% of their activities, right? So what are those sales folks doing for the rest of their time? Well, it's not putting the puck in the net. It's the reality. They're doing things like logging calls, writing notes, chasing the wrong people, trying to get people into meetings, leaving voicemails, all of this other stuff. Arguably, if we understand this as marketers, then we can actually help the sales organization, right? Because we have a lot of information, a lot more data. We're focused on patterns. We're focused on journeys, right? And I think that the first step we need to do as marketers is talk to the salespeople on a regular pulsed basis, right? Not just the sales manager or VP sales. It's talking to the actual people who are talking to the clients, right? Because quite often they'll have insights that we'll never be able to infer. Understand the problems that they face and propose solutions. And I think everybody on the phone here, we're all using ActiveDEMAND, so clearly we have something that it can be extreme value to the sales organization is the concept of automation. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about ActiveDEMAND in its role as a sales enablement tool. And really, and this is part of and I know some of you folks on the phone I've talked to earlier this year, and I talked about where our path is going as an organization. And clearly, we're not ever going to be a CRM tool, but something that I think is extremely important is understanding that marketers have to be cognizant of we have to bring in the deals, right? So we've been spending a bunch of time and effort here in ActiveDEMAND building out sales enablement tools, as well as our marketing automation system. So the intent is still that the marketers are using these tools, but the tools are more, some of the tools we've developed are more guided towards helping, allowing marketers to take a role in helping the salespeople succeed. Because I know with lots of sales meetings that I've been into, if we can provide as marketers something that reduces the pain that a salesperson feels, let me tell you, they're wanting to talk to you. And if they're wanting to talk to you, there's a better relationship between sales and marketing. And as marketing, we can do a better job. So some of the tools that we've introduced is like, for example, the Chrome extension, and I think it's a great marketing tool as well as a sales enablement tool. It's a case that I know myself, and I spend less time in sales, and I spend more time in marketing. I love the visibility to the data. User drip campaigns, this is something else that we introduced, and really what the intent of the user drip campaign concept in ActiveDEMAND was a set of campaigns that we as marketers could expose to our sales organization, right? So it's not just we have lots of drip campaigns that are in our tool belt and things that we're doing as marketers to move people along the buyer journey and build brand advocates, etc. But quite often, I think if you can give a salesperson an opportunity to automate some of his processes and expose a drip campaign that is just for them, there's a lot of power in that. And something we've had for several years now is the concept of appointment scheduling. So appointment scheduling has been a great tool for as a lead magnet or a conversion tool. But let me tell you, it's super, super valuable for sales folks. You know, being able to throw the ball into the prospect's hand and let them pick a time for their next sales call is really powerful, and also in the automation side of things. And we've also, as you know, we've integrated with Gmail and Outlook with our Outlook plugin, as well as our Chrome extension with Gmail. And something we introduced this year was the concept of reply tracking. Because, you know, when we send out emails or we're trying to get people to engage, if they reply to an email, arguably that's a very, very strong signal. And we need to be able to stop automations or score it or these types of things. So we've now introduced the concept of reply tracking. And of course, call logging, outbound call logging is something we've done for a long time, and I think it's useful for the sales folks because it enables us to auto log calls in the CRM. It saves a bunch of time. And something we just introduced is the concept of call completion templates. And these are really geared towards the individual salesperson to give them some personal automations that they can simplify their day-to-day process with like, for example, doing emails, replying, I should say, ending a sales call, dropping voicemails, any of these types of things. And I'll go in a little bit more detail on this. So now I'm going to just walk through the demo of sort of how these tools look in ActiveDEMAND and what the marketer sees and what you can introduce the salespeople to. But really, the intent of this session is to sort of talk about sales enablement and trying to help marketers and salespeople become more tightly aligned. So the first thing I want to talk about is we've all used the marketing tools. We have the campaigns. We're doing all of these things. And back to the original slide, the slide with the funnel that I showed you, is our purpose is to use ActiveDEMAND as a tool set for applying pressure to a population of people to create sales-ready leads. And the boundary between the marketing automation system, which is ActiveDEMAND, and whatever the CRM is really defined by the sales lead notifications workflow. So typically, we're not passing things off to sales unless the prospect actually does something. They phone us, they book a meeting, they fill out a form, they download an asset, they do something. Right? So one of the most important workflows in the sales and marketing alignment is the definition of what is a lead and who is it going to be assigned to. And that's what the whole intent of this workflow is. And this workflow, as you recall, is in the automation lead processing workflow, lead processing section of the product. So this fires whenever somebody fills out a form, books a meeting, downloads assets, chats, these type of things. And the intent of this workflow is you want to design it so that you are treating the salespeople as valuable resources, right? We want these people to get qualified leads. So really, our sales notification workflow is crazy. Like, it is so crazy. Some of you on the phone have seen it. And it's a case that it's because we're operating in multiple countries, in multiple languages, and we have a fairly long sales and marketing cycle. So it ends up being this workflow becomes really, really complex, which is okay. It's the fact that it can be complex is the beauty of it. So one of the things that you may not be using, and we've always had this in the platform, is our concept of lead claiming. So when we send like my philosophy is I typically like to have more than one salesperson operating in a region because, let's face it, some people, they might have lots of open opportunities in the CRM and they don't need new leads. So give somebody else the opportunity to take it. So we have the system where you can send, of course, the leads to the sales distribution list, and ideally you want multiple people in here. And then the lead notification template that we have is this concept of lead claiming and lead rejecting. And these are two dynamic fields. And we have this as a lead template that you can access in ActiveDEMAND. And the idea is we design the lead notification template that gives the salesperson the context to determine, is this a lead for them? And if it is a lead for them, the first person that claims it gets it. And they become the contact owner in ActiveDEMAND. So if somebody else tries to claim it after that salesperson claims it, they're said, no, sorry, this is already owned by whoever just claimed it. And then we pass this off into the CRM. So I'm using the example of Pipedrive, but that's something else that you've seen in our news feed is we're doing deep integrations with many CRMs today. So for example, like we do Salesforce, we've just become a Salesforce partner. We clearly do Pipedrive because we as a company use Pipedrive. We've done, we're just about to release Fresh Sales. We've done Nimble, Pipeline Deals, No CRM, and as well some specific CRMs for different industries. Like we're about to release a integration with a company called Sherpa. But long story short is that the first across the goal line is the create a deal object. So when somebody claims it, then what we can do for salespeople is we can create the deal or move the deal into the proper deal stage in the CRM. So with so for example, somebody registers for a gated asset, arguably it's a different stage in the funnel than if they've actually booked a meeting. So with this workflow and using the deal creation objects, we can create the deal in the proper deal stage or move the deal stage based on what the prospect has done. So for example, our business, clearly somebody downloading a white paper is in a different deal stage than somebody signing up for a trial, which is in a different deal stage where they booked their first demonstration with us. So we actually automate the deal process based on prospect activity. Now, once they're in the CRM, ideally we want our salespeople to be living in the CRM, right? We don't want them bouncing to ActiveDEMAND. We want them in the tool that's designed from the ground up for them and the sales process. So with the Chrome extension, and you marketers on the call, definitely I would be adding the salespeople as employees to ActiveDEMAND and introducing the Chrome extension to all the sales folks, because it gives some great data for the salesperson to understand what the prospect is doing. So this is what the salespeople see with the Chrome extension in Pipedrive. So it's a case that in other CRMs, it looks similar as well, that it's this little I dot here. So this is injected into the CRM by the Chrome extension. And what it is it gives us prospect insights, which allows the salesperson to have full visibility into all the website visits, all the emails, all the link clicks. All of this stuff is presented in the lead insights window, which is very valuable information for the salesperson. Another thing that it provides is this account insights, which it gives all the visibility to what the prospect, other people in the company are doing. You know, for example, Acme Inc. here. Now, one of the things that we've just introduced, and it's also available in our sidebar, is the concept of the user drip campaign. And these are the campaigns that are exposed for the salesperson. So the salesperson can see all of the user instantiated drip campaigns that this prospect is currently a member of. He can or she can remove the prospect from the drip campaign or add them to other drip campaigns. So we expose all of the active user drip campaigns in this UI for the salespeople to access. Now, something else that the salesperson's typically doing, so the salesperson's typically making calls, right? So, and when I make the call, we do, of course, have the ability to do outbound call tracking. And one of the things that we've introduced is the concept of call completion templates. And what I mean by that is a salesperson, they're typically, they phone somebody, they follow up with an email. They phone somebody, drop a voicemail, follow up with an email, or drop an SMS. So what we've done is when the call is made, this salesperson's personal, so it isn't like if I go back here, these drip campaigns are accessible by all salespeople, but we've introduced the concept of call completion templates that are for individual salespeople. So when I, for example, make this call, it's the case that what happens here is I'll click call, and if I hang up, these are my call completion templates. So if I hang up, it's the case that it drops the call, and then it pops up one of my personal call completion email templates. So for example, if I hear you've reached, Bob's not available right now, or Bill's not available right now, please leave a message, right? I can drop one of my pre-recorded voicemails, it'll disconnect from my headset, and then it'll open up a template that's associated with that call completion template. So in ActiveDEMAND, so I'm just going to move things over to ActiveDEMAND here. This is the sales, so you can create a sales login for your salespeople, whether it's a client constituent salesperson or an internal salesperson. And really, they don't have to be in ActiveDEMAND to do any of this stuff. The only thing that they will have to do in ActiveDEMAND is we need to get them a user account so they can use the Chrome extension. The other thing that they can do is this is the salesperson's profile. And when you're creating logins, typically we give salespeople dashboard logins. But when the person logs in, goes to their profile settings, this is where they configure and build their personal call completion templates. So the call completion templates are a combination of either a voicemail drop and an email, or a voicemail drop and an SMS, or just an email, or just an SMS, or just a voicemail. So it's a case that if you look here on this call completion template, and again, this is mine, it's not, the other salespeople will have their own. So I'd record my personal greeting, saying, hey, tried to call you today. This is Sean. I'm going to follow up with an email. Let's schedule a time. And then my email that's going to pop up in the CRM, right, will have the details of with all the dynamic fields, etc. So when I hang up the call, this template shows up. I can do any customization or just sends a track email and move on to my next call. So each salesperson can have as many call completion templates as they want. Something else that we've introduced is the concept of reply tracking, and I'll show you that here right now, and it is on a per salesperson basis. So basically what I would do is, for the salesperson, I would get them to log in, add the email and the IMAP server for their inbox. And then what ActiveDEMAND will do is, whenever an email is received by that salesperson, it'll call back to ActiveDEMAND. ActiveDEMAND will inspect the email. If the email has any evidence of tracking, in other words, ActiveDEMAND tracking, it will then recognize that email as a reply and inject it onto the timeline of that prospect. So if it'll ignore any emails that do not have any tracking, and if there's an out of office or something like that, it as well throws it away and doesn't recognize it as a reply. So these are on the individual salesperson's profile. Now, with the user drip campaigns that I mentioned, so it's the starting step for this new campaign type is a user-triggered a drip campaign. So when you're starting a drip campaign, you have the option of picking all these different starting steps. So one of the new starting steps is this user drip campaign. And the concept of the user drip campaign, it's very similar to a drip campaign with a static list, but you don't build the list, you don't see the list, it's all hidden. So really, and these are the only campaign types that are with a starting step of user drip that that are exposed to the salespeople. So with this, for example, this user drip is maybe it's hey, please book a meeting with me. So the salesperson at Pipedrive, he selects this, please book a meeting with me. He adds it. He can see which current step as well as the time have been in this current step. So in the drip campaign, hopefully I'm not bouncing around too much, it's the case that we send them an email saying, hey, it's from the salesperson. I tried to call you, you were busy. Busy's good. Pick a time on my appointment scheduler. We wait 5 days. We send them another email. The whole intent of this is that the salesperson is pushing the prospect to try to engage with the appointment scheduler object. Now, how we're going to kick this person out of the campaign is our goals. So the goals are, goal number 1 is, did they book the meeting, right? Goal number 2 is, did they reply to any of my emails? So as you know, each of the emails that are being sent, we can actually have it from the account manager as opposed to the default email address. And if they do reply to the email, ActiveDEMAND detects it and will kick them out of the campaign if it's not an out-of-office reply. So we can, it's a case that if they're exiting out of the campaign, it will actually show up here that they are actually out of this campaign. But back to the campaign, the point is that we can expose these campaigns. We can use the reply to kick them out of the campaign. And then typically with all of our CRM integrations, we have the ability to schedule follow-up calls in part of the automation. So ideally, we don't want to just have them fall out of the campaign if it's a user drip campaign. We want to push it back to the salesperson so they can make the final decision about whether or not this person is truly the deal is dead or not. Right, so it's a case that we typically, with these type of drips, we want to schedule some type of an activity that's back in the CRM. So stepping back again, the intent of what I'm trying to talk about here today is we've been focusing over the past 6-8 months on trying to add some sales enablement capabilities. Reason number one is to get tighter alignment between our sales and marketing organization. Reason number two is that, let's face it, all of us as in marketing, whether we're marketing for ourselves or marketing for other clients, it's about getting the deals in the door. Right, and if we don't get the deals in the door, it's going to be the case that nobody's going to win. So we've also provided some capabilities, because typically salespeople, if we think about salespeople, they're very coin operated. They want to do is not, and I'm not doing, hopefully not saying anything anything derogatory towards salespeople. They want to do the least amount of things possible to make the deal close. And the reality is, because they don't know automation, they're actually doing way more that they need to do to actually get the deal closed. And as marketers, we understand automation very well. We understand the concept of drip campaigns. So instead of training sales folks to go do this stuff, we have the tool set as marketers to help them with their process. So we can show them that we can help them reduce their effort in getting their job done. And we all win when they're closing more business. So that concludes this first Between Two Ferns CEO chat. And as always, you can book meetings with me, and you can ask me questions or ask our staff questions. And again, the intent of this meeting was to give you some of the thinking that we're doing here, and some of the things that are guiding the feature set that we're pumping out at a regular basis. Yeah, thank you all for joining this today, and hopefully, I think there's a survey going to come out after, so if you could respond to the survey, that'd be very good as well, because this is a new concept for us, and if you find it valuable, or if you have ideas for improvement, please let us know.